will explore certain prospects in a technical way. We're looking at some things now with fireproofing for a high-rise, which hasn't been done. And the high-rise itself can't go through the building department because the building code has no place for a building with no columns and no beams. So the building has no columns and no beams. So whatever tabulation and criteria for steel or concrete that exists, presumably for most buildings, has to be rewritten. So in order to do the building, which is better than not doing the building, we have to essentially rewrite the building code. So we're willing to do that. So I'll stand up somewhere and I'll talk about it, and somebody will listen to it, and somebody will say it's hard, or somebody will say it's tough, or somebody will say it's unreasonable. But somebody in the room will say, I'll do that. I understand that. That makes sense to me. So it'll move like that. And I think we're looking for cracks in that, looking for possibilities, encourage people to explore those kinds of possibilities. So some of this is not only a question of what's in your head, it's a question of what's in your stomach. Whether you're ready to do that. And the contractor tells the owner, this would be great, just put columns in, So then but it's all workable. I think the fundamental notion that drives the place, I have to say drives the place in an aspirational sense, in an idealist sense. I mean, somebody still comes in and paints the wall, cleans the floor, drops a cheeseburger, so it doesn't always work in the way that, but in an aspirational sense, the culture moves. And so once you accept the premise that allegiances are not what makes architecture, but instability makes it move, and instability means confusion, discomfort, uncertainty. You don't know whether you'll get it right. I mean, I can give you a number of examples over here. We bent the glass when we were doing that thing for the LA Philharmonic. And I remember people saying things like, you can't draw it, you can't bid it, you can't fabricate it, it'll break, it'll leak, and you'll get sued. All happened. It's up. So I think what I'm talking about, the instability quotient, really has to do with whether you're prepared to move somewhere where you think there's a destination, and there are reasons, there's substantive reasons and concept and content for making the effort, but since you haven't quite gone there and you don't quite know the route, so you don't know whether you're going to get stuck in the mud or in a jail cell or with the IRS, or you're going to wind up in nirvana. And strangely enough, all of those are simultaneously possible. That's not so different than the context of SCI-Arc, where the notion would be the intellectual context is pointed toward the prospect that it'll move, and people who are moving it need to be interrogated, not revered. So SCI-Arc depends in a way that many schools don't on the director, the point of view that comes from the director, and I think a director who practices as well as administers the school. And the interrelationship between it's a little complicated because the school is not the office. The office isn't the school. And the latitude and the openness and the kind of critical intellectual environment that is essential to the contentious within some plausible behavioral frame of reference, but the contentiousness in an environment like that would be hard to replicate in an office. So there are exchanges in terms of work and ideas about work and so on, but it's not, the idea is never to say, this is the world, this is the way it works, this is how architecture fits, Want to be hip, want to be radical architect, kid, do this, okay? So this is intrinsically the wrong message for anybody. That's not an intellectual's message. That's not the right academic message. So I think that itself is symptomatic of what's plausible in SCI-Arc and many other institutions would find either discomforting. It's not a political place. I mean, I guess you can argue you got two people in a room, you got politics, but it seems to be the kind of institution, which is probably the wrong word, that can keep its focus on its content, and to the extent that the SCI-Arc message is contagious, I think that might be it. Don't be complacent, don't be self-satisfied, don't be narcissistic, don't bring in your buddies, bring your enemies, and punch it out.